Hi, well, welcome to this YouTube video where I'm going to talk about my trip from northwest Brittany, my house, down to Fuengirola in the Costa del Sol. The trip itself is nearest damn it 2,000 kilometres, and we aim to do it in 4 days. We've got 5 days, so a day spare in case there's any problems, as we haven't done this length of journey before in an electric car. So this is the car, a Kia E-Niro. Bought it in 2020, but it's the 2019 model. It's got a 64 kilowatt hour battery and a claimed range of 450 kilometers. One of the few accessories I've bought for it is this frunk or fruit, depending on what you want to call it, where I can store my cables and keep the boot a bit tidier. So the first leg is from house to Fontenay-le-Comte, which is south of Nantes, and about as close to Niort as we could get, which is about halfway between home and the Spanish border. It's 412 kilometres, which is just within the range, but a lot of the roads that we're going on are actually got a top speed limit of 80 kilometres an hour, so that does extend it a bit. But we decided to visit some charge points on the way to do research, and because we haven't had to use them much up to now, as the solar panels on the house and the confinement due to COVID have meant that we've just been able to charge from home for free. So we're going to do some research on the way. So the first charge point we went to, it's not shown on the slide, but it was actually blocked by a Tesla using a Type 2 cable when nobody was around that we could speak to or anything. So we just carried on. It's worth noting that despite people talking about, the Tesla supercharger network, there's only one Tesla supercharger in the whole of Brittany, which is about the size of Wales. Anyway, we went on to another one at CDEV. This is a charge point that's put in by the government. These are all over France, but they're done locally by the local department. So they're all slightly different. And this is a very fast one, 50 kilowatt CCS. So I stopped there. The car hasn't changed colour. We just didn't take a photograph. And we added 10 kilowatt just to be safe. And then we travelled on down the motorway to the hotel. So the hotel was quite a posh lodgy, nice restaurant, expensive cocktails, that sort of thing. But the actual charge points, though they look quite good on the wall, were a Type 1, which nobody uses anymore in France, and the rest were just extension leads, basically. So they only gave out 10 amp. I had to use a granny cable, and it meant that we were only 80% full the next morning. I could have gone to a fast charger in the town and charged up to 80%, up to 100%, but that would have taken about an hour. So I decided to just press on, as there were plenty of points to recharge on the way. So on we go. So for the next step, 479 kilometres. So we knew we'd have to charge on the way. We stopped at a place called Ponds, which you can see in the photograph, and it wasn't working. So I rang the help desk, and they couldn't get it working. It's just I restart it, which I did, but I don't think anybody had used it for months. So it just needs better regular maintenance. So we bought some orange juice, a few bits and pieces in the local supermarket, then carried on to the next stop. Okay, so we didn't take the toll motorway down to Bordeaux, which is normally doing a diesel car, because if you go 130 kilometers an hour, it drops the range down to realistically about 350 kilometers. So any time you gain, which you're paying for, you lose because you have to stop and charge longer. So we just took the normal 80 kilometer hour roads and arrived at this place, Air de Fréchaude. Very good place to stop, next to a cafe, a restaurant, tourism office. One thing about it, and this is true of all the charge points, was the screen was almost impossible to read in the sunshine. You had to get like a sort of black cowl like they used to have in the old cameras just to see what you're doing. But it charged very quickly, and we went to the cafe and had some refreshments while we were waiting. Looking at the charge map and electro maps, it seems a popular point, and it does say if there's any problems, you can ask in the office to tourism. So an attended charge point is always a bonus. Okay. So we didn't need to stop here because we had more than enough in the batteries to get to Donostia San Sebastian, but we wanted to check out a few on the way as we had time, so we stopped to this one. It was in the middle of nowhere, literally. It was next to the motorway, it was close to the motorway, but it was just a wood. There was a restaurant which was closed, but it worked well. It was very fast. Not much to do, we just had a little walk around the woods. It would have been good to have a picnic. And then we on our way. Okay, then we crossed to Spain, where the prices dropped dramatically. We stayed in a B&B hotel, which is a French chain. It was very good. The car park underneath was where you had to charge the car. They did charge you €5 for the car park because it was secure, but that was fine. And the charging was simple. You just plugged it in and it worked. And then we went up and had a drink in our room because of COVID. You couldn't drink in the bar. And then putting our masks on, we went to the wok restaurant type place next door, had something to eat, went back to a very nice room with good air conditioning, and able to set off next morning with 100%. So the next day we had a choice. We could either go to Madrid via Burgos, or we could go the other route because we weren't actually staying in Madrid. We're staying in a place to the east of Madrid called Alcalá de Henares. So the first place we stopped was Iziz. That was a Repsol charge place. I didn't have the app. I downloaded it later, but it worked fine with my Shell charge card. So that was fairly painless. We got up to about 90%. Didn't take very long because we hadn't driven that far from the hotel. And then we went on to Ariza Sewer. There was a couple of other charge points around run by a company called Cargo Coches, but neither of those worked and didn't seem very good. The Andalucia one had just been installed, only the second one in Spain. And when we got there was a sign saying it was out of order on one machine, but the other machine said it was working. I plugged the car in. It said there was a fault. I called the help desk and I got through to somebody in Germany and they restarted the machine twice and then told me to plug it in and it was working. And I said, oh, this app of yours doesn't seem to work very well. And they said, no, well, it doesn't, but hopefully we're getting rid of it soon. And by the autumn, you'll just be able to plug your car in. Your car will be registered and we'll just bill you to your account. So that was quite good. So we charged it to 90%. Had the aircon running for the last half hour because it was about 39 degrees outside. And then we pressed on to Alcalá de Henares down the motorway. So this was the hotel near Madrid. It was an Ibis. It was very cheap, actually. It was only €15 because I'd earned a few bonus points or whatever, and but they were familiar with people charging, but they said it didn't get many people in charging. So we plugged it in. It was charged up by about 2 in the morning, but I just left it there. We went off for a meal nearby. Well, say nearby, it was about a kilometre away. Had a Japanese meal, it was very good. And then the next morning, we were bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, or sort of. We left with 100% to head south. So on this journey, we didn't need to stop. Obviously, there was plenty of range in the car. It was a motorway, and the speed limit on Spanish motorway is 120 kilometers per hour. We decided to do 110, just in case, so to make sure that we had plenty of charge. And we seemed it was fine. There was not much traffic, and on we went. So this was our first stop, Gasolinera Low Cost La Carolina. It didn't have many instructions on how to work the thing. It just said use your phone. The bit of paper saying that you had to download the Easy Charge app got blown away. Anyway, the guy who was there supervising the garage and the car wash and things came over and got it going. It didn't cost us anything. We got up to about 90%. We wandered off to the Repsol garage next door and had a bit to eat. And then we came back. He disappeared, so there was no one to pay. So we carried on to our Airbnb in Jaén. So this was a place that I'd found by looking on Airbnb, or maybe it was Airbnb, and then we looked for places that had car charging points, and I wrote to him and said, can I charge my car there? And he said, yeah, no problem. When we got there, it was on the outskirts of Jaén. It was a very, very steep drive to go down. And the car parking was incredibly tight. But it was a lovely host who actually taxied us out to the nearest restaurant in the evening and back. The car was, even though it was only I used my granny cable, it fully charged, and we were able to set off the next morning for Fuengirola.